Alright. Welcome again to Doozer Shop. Filled up that last video with boring this casting right here. And I didn't really get a chance to narrate a few of the things that I used to set it up and just talk a little bit about what else I got going on, kind of a shop update. So let me just go handheld and kind of show you some stuff that I used in setting this casting up here on the Gorton. So let me grab you. All right. So anyhow, I mentioned to get this casting running true, the object was to bore that top hole because I had brazed a crack and I repaired it. So what I began with is these two holes are existing with a shaft that runs an idler gear. So this is a factory untouched bore, and these had been bored before. Well, yes, because there was bronze bushings in these two, and from the factory, from the Colchester lathe, that does not have bushings to my knowledge. I think it's iron on iron. So these could be both suspect, but these holes were factory original. So what I did is I indicated around the bottom and the top with an indicator and to make sure it was plumb this way, lined up with the spindle, and plumb this way. So then I could move over here, indicate this hole for center, and get this one bored coaxial, knowing that the casting with the other two holes were lined up in this plane and in that plane with the spindle. So, but what I had to do, come around the side here, it's in the vise. I got a shim behind the jaw. I think it's 6 or 5 thou, because this bottom was not equidistant to these holes as it probably should have been, but you know, it's a casting and someone worked on it before I did many years ago. But I'll show you what I used initially. I got this indicator. It's a coax indicator, and it's a pretty good one. And it's actually, it says Lynx made in China, but it's a very good one. I have a Blake made in USA coax indicator, and I like this one better. It's more repeatable. It's got less dither to it. But anyways, I got going with that, and I could use a short probe for the top and the long probe for the bottom, but they give you different sensitivities. So what I wanted to do was use a real indicator. So I got a little extension there, and this is the old Starrett, I think 711 they call this, last word, and it got pretty good. I couldn't see her on the back though, because the casting, you know, has a back to it. So what I did is I pulled out another trick. Okay, this is cool. This is a dual face indicator. It says Dual, made in England, but I think it's like a Fowler verdict or something because it's made in England. But anyways, I was able to reach down and clock the bottom bore and then come up and clock the top bore. And I could read, you know, both sides of it, which I just had a hard time doing with the last word. And I don't trust the coax dead nuts, and when I had the bottom hole indicated and I went to the dual verdict dual face, I had to dial it back in maybe like 2.5, 3 thousandths for center versus this one. But this one was good to get me in the ballpark and get everything lined up plumb into planes. So and this thing, I don't think this is not a good camera. In the glare, maybe you can kind of see it. This is a really cool indicator. I got this off eBay years ago, and it's never, to my knowledge, been used. There ain't a scratch or a mark on it. So I keep this in the house in my wood toolbox, and I'm very gentle with it. But anyways, that's how I got it indicated in the vise. And like I said, I bought this mill at least 10 years ago, and then I moved in down here and built my shop, and you know, just getting this mill cleaned up. It's a Gorton 9J. I don't think it's had much use. I got it near Chestnut Ridge area in Buffalo, New York, Orchard Park. And I mean, this thing, it was in the newspaper, an ad in the newspaper for a milling machine for sale, and I'd never heard of Gorton. I was in the market for a Bridgeport. So I went and I looked at it, and I said, wow, this thing's like way bigger than a well, it's like a third bigger than a Bridgeport. My headless Bridgeport's over there, which I have to attend to and finish putting together. But this thing, it's really a nice machine. I put new leather weight covers on it because the old ones were just probably from 1942. This is a War baby. It's got on the side there War finish, War production board, something. But anyways, you know, it's got power feet on the tables, X and Y, no Z, unfortunately. But this is a really nice machine. I think it's a Brown and Sharp taper spindle 11, maybe it's 10, but it's sleeved down to R8, so it can take R8 Bridgeport collets, which is really sweet, you know. So, but anyways, it makes kind of it's only got 3.5 inches of downfeed with the quill, and you know, which can kind of be problematic, trying to indicate stuff. That big hand wheel there, that's for the knee, but that knee is almost all the way down, and you can see I could maybe raise up or lower the knee another inch or so, but that boring bar is right there, man. And luckily my friend Jonathan has another mill that we're going to do some swapping and trading with, and it's another 9J, and it's got a riser that goes between the ram and the body. So I want it just for the ram riser to get me another 4-6 inches out of it. I don't know what it is, but anyways, that's what that's all about. This is LW Chuck vise. I know everybody's got Kurt vices. This thing I got from machine dealer Gordy Gray in Buffalo. I think he asked me, he asked $40 for it, and I'm like, yeah, that's a great deal, thank you. So there's not a drill pecker hole in this thing, and you know, it's not a lockdown vise, but you know, if you jig stuff properly and apply the forces, clamping forces properly, like I got that piece of aluminum in there, you know, I'm pushing right in the center, and jaw deflection doesn't matter because kind of what I'm doing, and I got the back shimmed up proper when I indicated everything. You know, Kurts are nice, but I mean, if you know what you're doing, you don't need a Kurt. You know, so. But this is a sweet vise. It's an 8-inch, I guess 8x2 or something, 2-inch high. So, and it looks the part on this old vintage Gorton. It just looks like it's fits with it, you know. So that's cool. That's really cool. But this casting, I'll show you. I'll pan over to the apron for the Colchester. See, there's a Colchester, 17-inch old style. I think it's called the Mastiff or something. It's the old round head Colchester, but the apron's off of it, and it's over here. Pardon the tube of grease, but it's the power feed for the apron. And what happened was, get a shot. Move the rag. something happened to this gear, and it chewed the teeth off of it. So I got a replacement gear. It was $1,200 for this gear, and I didn't pay too much for the lathe. I think I only paid $1,000 or so for it. So I figured another $1,000 for a gear. You know, I could braze it in and repair the teeth, but it would just be so much faster just to get it, and I was able to buy it from a gentleman in Texas. I forget, he's a dealer of some sort for Colchester stuff. I forget his name, or else I'd mentioned it. But either way, but the rest of this thing, it's in good shape. All the gears are pretty good. The bottom, I can't even show you how this. Okay, yeah. So well, this is for the. Let me get this out of here. So that's the lead screw, and that's the power feed rod, and that power feed shaft with the key in it powers that whole banjo or whatever the casting I was showing you. So here's the detents. This is for like cross feed, and this is for longitudinal feed or whatever. And what happens is when you click the handle in one or the other, there's a spring for the detent, and when the force of the spring is engaged with the detent, it puts a lot of load on this shaft, the power feed shaft. Like the spring force pushes sideways on the bearings really hard. So it's sort of I don't like the design. I don't know, I want to call it it is a bad design. Absolutely. It's not a good design. But anyways, so I got other parts for it here. I know, just yeah, so there's the worm that goes in the casting, and here's the lever, and there's a spring somewhere that goes into it, but it's just, there it is. So there's the spring, and there's the detent underneath it, but this spring is so strong, it just loads the heck out of the bearings, and well, I'll show you. I mean, right, something else. I mean, look at these jokers. That's the wear that was on these bearings, bushings. I keep calling them bearings. You guys know what I mean. It's not, I mean, they're just egged. So, like I said, my solution, you know, it didn't wear through the bearing, but the casting was cracked, and that's where these go. So I'm making new ones of these out of aluminum, tin, bronze, brass, bronze, yeah. And this spring is really strong, but that's gonna. I'm just gonna put a minimum, just a little itty bitty spring, enough to click it in, and if I have to come up with another catch mechanism that doesn't exert so much force into these bushings, you know, I'm gonna do that. So, and there's the shaft in those two holes where I indicated, and that's where the other gear goes. So that's kind of the pile of parts for the apron for the Colchester that I'm putting together, and that's why I had to reboard that casting, is because I brazed it up. And so yeah, so you see these and how egged those are. Let me show you I have to make bushings another couple. So I got to make a new one for there. That's just egged out, and another one for here, which is egged out, and they all ride on the power feed shaft. Now the lead screw, there's a bushing in here under all that grease, and it's a single-sided half nut, and it's still in good shape. But see, somebody had grease fittings here and there, and in that casting that I showed you, there were grease fittings, but the grease just holds the grit, and it creates a lapping paste and kills it. It's awful. And there's just grease all over everything. So this thing is getting, you know, put in the parts washer and cleaned off, and we're never going to grease this again. We might do some, you know, Gits, flip top oily cups or something. But anyways, just want to kind of show you what I was up against with that casting and why I'm doing, what I'm doing, kicking stuff. And so I hopefully to get this lathe back into service. So just wanted to give you guys an update. Till next time, this is Doozer's Shop.